Welcome to my annual Oscar series where I talk about all the Oscar categories except for the short film ones because I don't really have access to most of the short films most of the time. Then I rank all the nominees per category according to who I think deserves to win those Oscars, and then I make a prediction for who I think will win each Oscar. And now I am talking about finally the Oscars for this year, the 89th Academy Awards that are going to happen on Feb 26, I believe, in the States, so that means Feb 27 in the morning here in the Philippines. So yeah, let's just get on with it. As usual, I'm going to be going from the smaller technical categories all the way up to the major awards, including Best Picture. So we will start off with Best Visual Effects, and the nominees are Deepwater Horizon, Craig Hammack, Jason Snell, Jason Billington, and Burt Dalton. Doctor Strange, Stephen Soretti, Richard Bluff, Vincent Sorelli, and Paul Corbold. The Jungle Book, Robert Legato, Adam Valdez, Andrew R. Jones, and Dan Lemon. Kubo and the Two Strings, Steve Emerson, Oliver Jones, Brian McLean, and Brad Schiff. And Rogue One, John Knoll, Mohan Leo, Hal Hickel, and Neil Corbold. Now, I think this is a great list of varied nominees based on what you look for in visual effects heavy films. Like, any of these I think could be your favorite, but of course, this is going to be completely subjective for me. This is what I look for personally. In terms of snubs, I'm kind of surprised not to see Arrival on this list, but it does just kind of show that the Academy knows that that film is more than its visual effects, so I'm kind of okay with that. Alright, so in terms of who I think deserves to win the Oscar, at 5th place I'm going to give it to Deepwater Horizon. Now, I understand that a lot of visual effects people in the industry are really impressed by the visual effects in Deepwater Horizon, and just because this film is at number 5 for me doesn't mean I didn't think they did a great job, because the effects here are great. What they do in the movie is that they really confine everything into just this one location that's going through a series of systematic breakdowns, and it really is cool to kind of trace how this oil spill happened and how all these different environmental things are happening. There's a ton of environmental effects here, from more practical effects like just the machinery just breaking down, all the way to some really well-rendered CGI fire. But I guess the reason why this film is at number 5 for me is the fact that the ending sort of kind of took me out of the movie, where I really just kind of felt like I was watching a movie. I'm not sure if the fire effects really changed from the middle of the film to the ending, but there's just something about it that kind of took me out of it. That's why it's at number 5. Now, at 4th place, I'm going to give it to Doctor Strange. A lot of people, when Doctor Strange came out, a lot of people were praising this film for, its crazy visuals, and I think that craziness really is deserving of praise. However, there was no time when I was watching Doctor Strange that I felt like it was seamless. Like, I always felt like I was watching a movie. That's why it's lower on this list. However, just on the level of creativity, I think it does deserve a lot of acclaim, because what they're doing in Doctor Strange in terms of visual effects isn't just showing us crazy images. They're also introducing to us a world, a multiverse that's possible within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they really had to be crazy with their visuals to convince us that, there are no boundaries anymore, and that these characters can go anywhere they want. And what's so cool also about the visual effects is that, again, it's not just crazy visuals, they're also giving us a lot of information about how these different dimensions work, like the astral plane, the mirror dimension, the dark dimension. It's really efficient storytelling, and I loved it. Now, 3rd place, I'm going to give it to Rogue One. And the visual effects in Rogue One are arguably better than in The Force Awakens, and the visual effects in The Force Awakens were my favorite special effects from last year. The ground battles look fantastic, the air battles look great, the space battles. In terms of new effects, they do things with the environment, like especially when the Death Star, when you get to see what it can do to a planet, and when you're on the ground, it's really jaw-dropping and awe-inspiring rather. And they do a lot of stuff as well with motion capture, especially with Alan Tudyk as K2SO, but mostly with the guy who plays Grand Moff Tarkin, who obviously had like a CGI face on him. And that's sort of like the gray area for me when it comes to Rogue One, because the CGI on Tarkin is impressive, but it's just so uncanny. It is the uncanny valley where they're just a little bit short of photorealistic that it looks really strange. So it did take me out of the movie whenever I saw Grand Moff Tarkin on screen, and I saw the movie twice and I was still distracted. So you really have to give kudos to the visual effects team of Rogue One for really kind of pushing the boundaries of what CGI motion capture can do. It's just that it was distracting, and I can't say it was flawless face reconstruction or anything like that. Now, at second place, I'm going to give it to The Jungle Book. And what The Jungle Book does is that it's a film that's created entirely on a soundstage. They shot none of this in an actual jungle, and you really can't tell because it does just feel like you're there. You believe in this illusion within the very first few minutes of the film, and you just kind of fall into it. You believe you're in this setting, you believe you're surrounded by these characters, these talking animals, and the character designs on these animals are flawless. There's so much detail on them, on Bagheera and Shere Khan and Baloo. But what's so cool is that they make these talking animals not look weird, you know. It doesn't come off like they're animatronics or anything. They're so believable, in my opinion, that you really are able to form an emotional connection to them really easily. And what's so cool is that the environments in The Jungle Book aren't just green screen. They are almost interactive environments in that when, you know, there's wind in the air, like everything on screen moves as if you're really watching something that was shot on set. It's so cool to see Mowgli interacting with all the trees and the leaves and whatnot. It's so cool to see all the animals interacting with him, and it's just flawless. It really is, and I'm glad it's getting this much recognition. But at first place, and the film that I think actually deserves to win this Oscar, is Kubo and the Two Strings. This is the most accomplished stop-motion film ever made. And I'm so glad it got nominated because I think people forget that stop-motion animated films are eligible for this category because they are pretty much live action. And this is the first time it's happened since The Nightmare Before Christmas was nominated back in the 90s. There are CG effects in Kubo and the Two Strings, but what's so impressive is that the entire film, which is mostly stop-motion, looks like CGI. And there were so many moments during my first viewing of Kubo where I just got distracted by the visuals in a good way and was like, there's no way that what I'm watching right now isn't CGI, but it is, and it's crazy. There's an insane amount of attention to detail here, but what I really believe Kubo has that elevates it above these other nominees is the fact that I think it being stop motion was instrumental to the film being as good as it was, because stop motion really gives off this sort of rawness that would not have been possible with CGI. And in the context of Kubo, it being stop motion also gave the film like this heightened sense of melancholy that the movie really had from the get-go, that again, I really don't think that if they computer animated Kubo, it would have had the same sort of vibe. So the visual effects here were just instrumental in the tone of the film and the storytelling, and that's why I think it deserves to win this Oscar. Now, in terms of my official prediction for who I think will win the Oscar, I'm going to give it to The Jungle Book, because the Academy does love giving this award to movies that are mostly or entirely shot on sound stages, like Avatar or Hugo, Life of Pi or Gravity, but I'm really not complaining because it is extremely impressive. It's still my number 2 in terms of who I think deserves to win this, so yeah. Alright, so those are my thoughts on Best Visual Effects. What do you guys think of these nominees? Who do you think will win? Who do you think should win? Whatever you guys think, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.